When people learn that I'm from Ferguson, people just assume that protest and riot is still like, riots are still ongoing.
Where are you from? And I say, Ferguson, Missouri. The whole restaurant got quiet.
They're gonna think of Michael Brown, but there are some really great things happening in the city of Ferguson.
When you have to come visit, it's not what you see on TV.
Thank you for joining us for Race, Listen, Learn, Live, Voices of Ferguson. I'm Kelly Jackson.
And I'm Mike Bush. Whether you call what happened in Ferguson following the fatal shooting of Michael Brown Jr. in 2014 protests, unrest, riots, or an uprising, it was a catalyst for change. Black St. Louisans, frustrated after years of being targeted by law enforcement, had had enough and took to the streets demanding that their voices be heard.
A lot has happened in 10 years, yet we are also aware and sensitive to the scars that still remain in Ferguson. It has been a journey for our entire community. To see how far we've come, we begin by taking a look back. A very tense afternoon in Ferguson after a teenager is killed in an officer-involved shooting. The shooting happened around 12:30 this afternoon at the Canfield Green Apartments. Officers from more than a dozen agencies are sorting out what happened.
A teenage boy was laying in the street here for nearly 4 hours, dead from a shooting. We understand it was a Ferguson police officer that shot the teen.
We feel, and we've always felt from the very beginning, that Officer Darren Wilson did not have to shoot and kill Mike Brown Jr.
No justice for peace! No justice for peace!
That was somebody's child, somebody's father, somebody's brother. All we looking for is justice. We don't want no trouble, just justice being served.
Please clear the street. Return to your homes and get out of the street.
When do you want justice? When do you want it? Now!
Well, I was watching them carrying stuff out the windows, walking out the door, wheels, tires.
They want to see the Ferguson Police Department hire 10 African-American police officers by next year and create a civilian police review board.
You don't have to agree, but you can't deny if somebody else experienced something. You can't say it's not true just because you've never experienced it.
Respect goes both ways. I can't expect you to respect this uniform if I don't show you respect.
If we want peace in our streets, we must work together to create a more just and equal society.
Please take a day of silence so we can lay our son to rest.
Action happens when we are, finding ways to sort of create a dialogue to each other so that we can actually start to move forward.
But we're going to show the world that St. Louis is going to make a change all around the world.
This is a movement, and it's something that's necessary. There needs to be police reform, and I think the only way that we're going to get it done is by this.
I think it's more than right for us to do this everywhere. Frontenac, downtown City Hall, everywhere. It needs to be done.
According to the Washington Post, a person briefed on the federal investigation says at this time, there is not enough evidence to file civil rights charges against Wilson.
In Ferguson, our investigation will assess the police department's use of force, including deadly force. It will analyze stops, searches, and arrests, and it will examine the treatment of individuals detained at Ferguson's city jail.
At the end of the day, everyone is Mike Brown. This can happen to anyone.
Every now and then, I get my son's face in my head and his smell up my nose and his arm maybe around me. I feel all those things.
I have black nephews, I have black friends, I have black sons. I'm getting ready to have a black grandson. So all of that, we still have to tell them to be careful.
It means a lot for people to continue to support us after 9 years. After the funeral, most people, they disappear and you deal with the grief on your own. But over the years, we've continued to have our support system grow.
Michael Brown's death and the unrest that followed changed policing across the country forever. 10 years later, the Ferguson Police Department is a very different organization. Only 4 officers who patrolled the community at that time are still on the job. Laura Barczewski spoke with those guiding the department forward.
When the shooting happened, that delayed my start day.
So I actually started 15 days afterwards, 15 days after the shooting.
Sergeant Jill Grunwald was immediately thrown into the fire, working 12 hours on, 12 off for months in a community filled with pain.
We were missing our families, and then just everything that surrounded the riots in the meantime was hard, but it was also eye-opening at the same time.
Many rallies for justice turned into riots.
You're looking around at just shells of buildings, shells of property. And these people, that's all they had. And we felt helpless. We understood the community's pain, certainly, but at the same time, what we were having a hard time understanding was why victimize the same community that's already in pain.
Since 2014, Grunwald has reported to 8 different chiefs, including Police Chief Troy Doyle, who took over last year. He was a St. Louis County officer when the unrest radiated through the community.
And I understood both sides of what was going on. I grew up in North County. I experienced it. I got the trophy for it. I got pulled over 100 times, so I know what it feels like.
How do you feel you were viewed at the time as an officer by the community?
The devil. The absolute devil. They didn't know my heart, though. You know, they didn't know the way that I was raised, and we were all lumped into one category.
How did policing change specifically here in Ferguson after all of the unrest and Michael Brown's death?
Many police departments went to body-worn cameras and things of that nature. We all went through de-escalation type of training, so it changed the dynamics in law enforcement on how, not only how we patrol our communities, but how we view our communities as a whole.
10 years later, facts show the department is a different place.
Our police department is 50% African American now. In 2014, we had maybe 3 African Americans on this police department. We have way more female police officers now than we ever had in the past. Our uniforms are different. Our police cars are different. We have changed the culture here in the police department.
That change came after a 130-page federally mandated consent decree. It called for mediation to address the community's distrust of the police department.
It's confidential between them and us, and they just get to talk freely with us what their issues are, and we just speak frankly with them.
Community Mediation Services of St. Louis took on the task. Angela Lawson chairs the board.
As an African-American woman, it was hard to see, hard to hear, and an outlet is needed.
That outlet became small group mediation. It's led 10 different sessions between police and the community.
It has helped develop the relationship between the officers and the community. So the officers are not looked at as being anti-Ferguson, anti-community, but they're to support the community.
A community they love and continue to serve no matter what.
I still think it's important that we continue to have these conversations. That's the only way we continue to heal and we get better.
And we've learned a lot over these last 10 years, and I see the difference just even where I came from. And if it wasn't for everything that happened, we wouldn't be where we are.
I'm Laura Barczewski, 5 on your side.
10 years to the day of Michael Brown's death, police officer Travis Brown suffered a severe brain injury when a protest in Ferguson turned violent.
That way. That way. Officer down. Officer down.
In the days that followed, Police Chief Troy Doyle making a passionate plea to the community.
This police department, this Ferguson Police Department, since 2014, has been a punching bag for this community. The police department back in 2014, we don't even have them officers here anymore. So what are you protesting? These officers not even here no more. Everything that the activist community has advocated for, as far as body-worn cameras, implicit bias training, crisis intervention training, all this stuff, we have done all of this. What are we protesting? What is it? We even changed the uniforms at this police department because people said that the old uniforms triggered people. What are we doing? 10 years later, I got an officer fighting for his life. It's enough, and I'm done with it.
A GoFundMe has raised more than $145,000 for Officer Brown's medical expenses. One of those protesters has been charged in the assault.
Healing and transformation take time, years in fact. The people who live in Ferguson have experienced turmoil and heartache. However, many residents will tell you, looking back, those trying times have strengthened their small community. One resident spreads a message of hope, pride, and positivity to her students.
My name is Kathy Price, and I've lived in Ferguson for 21 years. I teach school in the Ferguson, Florissant School District. I was teaching in the suburbs and living in the city, so I wanted to be more a part of the community of where I taught. So I chose Ferguson because it had a homely community, like outside of the urban but suburban kind of meshed together. So that's why I chose this for my home. I am a homeowner in the community, so I live near January Wabash Park, so that was important to me. Even though I don't have kids, I still wanted that backyard for my home, and I wanted to be able to like walk to local businesses like we're here now at Kathy's Kitchen.
How would you describe the community of Ferguson?
It's a really like a multicultural community. We have a little bit of everything. I remember the day that it happened. I was shopping at Aldi's in downtown Ferguson, and a man came into the store and announced to the customers about the shooting of Mike Brown. From that day forward, I feel like the community was very shattered at that time, and people just did not have trust in the police department at that time. But I never wavered. I was like, it happened, it was not a good thing, but I felt like as a community that we could heal and that we could move forward in the process of what happened and not focus on the negative. So that was my job as an educator, to let them talk about their emotions and how they felt about the situation, and to just be there to nurture them, to let them know if we just stayed focused on our educational dreams and goals, that we can make it through this. The mom and pop small business is in Ferguson. Ferguson kind of like thrives off of that. We have a lot of those businesses, but Kathy's Kitchen in particular, she's African American. She's a African American owned business, and we need to have things like that so our students can have this as a model to say, if she's doing it, then they also can do it. It's heartbreaking for me to say that we lost, and when I say we, because we were part of the community, that we lost someone at such a young age. But we need to take this as a valuable learning experience and do better on both sides. The citizens, you know, the young teenagers in the community, we need to do better. And of course, the law enforcers, we need to make sure that we're being responsible in our duty as serving our daily duties when we interact with the citizens of the community.
The anger, frustration, and sadness people felt left them looking for an outlet, a way to express their feelings about what was happening on the streets of Ferguson and beyond. Our Diamond Palmer spoke with two poets who provided their artistic responses to the past decade of social upheaval.
Caught in an existence where we feel everything and nothing at all, because I found myself grieving all over again, being angry all over again.
Shiraz Gourmand is not just a poet, she's also an activist and a photographer. She was one of more than a dozen creatives who lent their talents to Ferguson and beyond, an art show at Webster University.
As a poet, there's always, you're grappling with your words, you're grappling with every stanza.
The exhibition included paintings, sculptures, video, and poetry from artists of color around the region reacting to the death of Michael Brown Jr. And Terry Riley curated the show.
Because it mirrors what the artists see in society, and indeed in this case, what the artists saw in the streets of Ferguson.
Jason Vassar-Elong describes similar feelings of relief.
Poetry became that mechanism by which I was able to express myself in a way that didn't hurt anybody, but I was still able to express hurt. I was able to express my own feelings of being sort of on the receiving end of oppression. I'm sure that the world is tired of angry black men poems about the struggle, as much as those angry black men are tired of struggling.
Gourmand calls the process of putting her piece together meditative, but admits it didn't heal all her wounds.
There were times that I had to get up and walk away, because I would read something and I would just be like, you know what? let me go and take a breath, because this is not resolved.
Healthcare professionals at SSM Health say using art as an outlet can decrease depression and anxiety.
But seeing an appropriate professional can help everyone.
Dr. Maurice Redden says sometimes there's suppression of emotions in the Black community surrounding traumatic events. He says no matter if you choose to seek professional help or create art, you're actively working through trauma.
They come from different sides of the brain, whereas talk therapy, you work on one side of the brain dealing with the verbal and the language of talking through things, whereas art, you can deal with it and so many other sensory modalities.
It's all about listening to your mind and your body.
We feel all our feelings. I think that is the beauty of being able to be a poet. It's like no holds barred.
It's important to know what your triggers are. I've seen my stress level go down. I take to my writing pad and I have a conversation with myself in a way that will end up becoming a poem that someone will be able to glean some energy from that can help them to deal with their moment of adversity when it comes.
Diamond Palmer, 5 on your side.
While writing poetry can help people process their emotions, it can also recite a shared feeling, letting us know we're not alone, that someone else has felt that same emotion.
During our show, poets Jason Vassar-Along and Shiraz Gorman share poetry created following the unrest in Ferguson.
My eyes have seen it all happening. We are moving images animated by breath and flesh, time traveling, splitting the difference, split by difference, indoctrinated and detoxing, programmed and raging, caught in an existence where we feel everything and nothing at all, attempting to numb the sting of being ourselves amongst people who think too highly of their own opinions. Spirit whispered to me, let the silence be the mirror and watch them break and go on about your business. Characters come in and out. This is the gift time gives us. So be still, children. Everything is and ain't what it seems. Even the trees hold secrets. Breathe and be still.
Our first Ferguson Commission meeting was like 7.5 hours long. It was intense. People, they had, feelings.
Group effort. The panel appointed to identify problems throughout the community and find solutions. The killing of Michael Brown opened wounds that had festered deep beneath the surface of the St. Louis region for years. All that pent-up passion spilled out into the streets in the historic protests that followed. That's when Missouri Governor Jay Nixon commissioned a diverse panel to dig into uncomfortable truths to find a path forward. Our political editor, Mark Maxwell, looks back at the Ferguson Commission.
I think it is one of the pivotal moments, certainly in this century.
This image shook Ferguson and the country to its core.
I do remember having a very visceral reaction to the fact that they left Michael Brown's body on the streets for so long.
Soon, those streets would swell with righteous rage.
We felt like we had to, because if we didn't, who would?
Stay out of the street.
At first, Governor Jay Nixon met protesters with police force.
I think his toughness ended up only backfiring on him, of the people in the street continuing to protest and take to the street.
Then, a different idea. Nixon found an outlet for the outrage.
The governor made a broad call to action saying we as a community need to come together and heal.
That I will faithfully demean myself as a member of the Ferguson Commission.
Major inflection points in American history are often marked by a commission, government officials appointing panels to diagnose what went wrong and prescribe a fix. And so perhaps it's fitting that one of the first meetings of the Ferguson Commission gathered here at the Missouri History Museum.
Our first Ferguson Commission meeting was like 7.5 hours long. It was intense.
Before winning election to City Hall, Daniela Velasquez worked at the ACLU.
I was a staff consultant for the Ferguson Commission.
That's where she would first meet Rasheen Aldridge, a young outspoken activist, and Gabe Gore, a corporate attorney from one of the most high-powered law firms in the city. An unlikely coalition was forming.
The St. Louis community kind of being awakened to some social injustices that had been occurring in our community for a long time.
The Ferguson Commission revealed some of those lesser-known problems like speed traps and debtors' prisons were feeding into problems of poverty and despair.
What can we do to address the underlying problems?
Its aim was ambitious, even if its findings were alarming. The final report detailed vast racial gaps in life expectancy. In mostly white suburban Wildwood, Missouri, the life expectancy 91.4 years. In the mostly black inner ring suburb of Kinloch, Missouri, life expectancy just 55.9 years.
This is literally life or death. This isn't just some statistic, some theoretical construct. People are dying.
The action plan produced a progressive policy platform some politicians still push for today. Other reforms were more practical and immediate.
I think body cams are a big step forward.
10 years later,
You solemnly swear.
Gabe Gore now wields immense power as the city's top prosecutor.
You look back and you use these milestones to judge, how far have we come from where we were.
And just across the street, 2 aldermen carry the work of that Ferguson Commission with them at City Hall.
I think we're better now than we were 10 years ago. And it doesn't mean that we don't have work to do.
I would think the commission did work. If it wasn't for Mike Brown, if it wasn't for that movement, it sparked something inside of me. It sparked a different type of fight.
How will history remember the Ferguson Commission?
The beginning of an era of a public awakening and focus on issues of social justice.
Mark Maxwell, 5 on your side.
One of the historic changes in Ferguson happened at the very top. Ella Jones became the first female African-American mayor of the city in 2020. As a resident of Ferguson for 42 years, she raised her family, ran a business, and served as a pastor. Ann Allred and photojournalist Doug Howell explain how the fabric of Ferguson has changed in the words of Mayor Ella Jones.
What do you want? Justice! When do you want it? Now!
All of us can be protesters. All of us have a different call. And it was not my call to protest. It was my call to go knock on City Hall door and say, I need a seat at the table. That was my call. Right after the fatal shooting, the Department of Justice came in and Congressman Clay called them in and they found Ferguson doing some wrongdoings. People did not want to accept it. They still don't accept it. They don't believe it. However, we are in a consent decree. If you wanted to accept it or you don't want to accept it, this is where we are. So where we are, we should embrace it and do everything we can to move out of it. 10 years anniversary, fatal shooting, Michael Brown. Yes, it's a time, it's going to be a sad time. And my heart goes out to the mother, and my heart goes out to the father. That did not happen to me. I can't even imagine, but I just feel for them. However, you cannot continue to beat us over the head with it. And I say that, we do understand, we feel, we've learned, we're doing better. So that's the only way we could get to the next step of this journey of Ferguson. And by having the new police chief that we have, Troy Doyle, he has worked diligently in the last year that he has been here to change the culture of the police department. When he came here, staffing was at 49%. Now we're at 76%. We didn't have a lot of people of color, African Americans, Asians. Now we do. It makes a difference when the apartment complex say they're having a picnic for the kids and the police officers go out there and they're laughing and they're talking with the children and they're having a good time, and that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. The people who make up the community have to get to the point where they care about one another and they're willing to sit down and interact with one another. Not a faction here, not a faction over there, but community. We have to do what we need to do in order to continue to move forward. We can't stand still. If we stand still, we're gonna die. I don't want nobody to fear my city. I want people to come and enjoy themselves here in Ferguson. That's when we have a win-win. When we could sit down, go through our differences, and come out on the other side of let's work together to make this better for everyone. That's what I'm looking for.
In August of 2014, a number of business owners in Ferguson, both small and large, were met with major challenges. The gloom and destruction left many feeling like they wanted to throw in the towel, but they prevailed. Travis Cummings discovered their work over the last decade is making sure Ferguson continues to win.
Stand it up, let's go!
The sound of people getting better. BKM Fitness on Southwest Florissant in Ferguson is in the business of building people up.
It's more than just weight loss, it's changing lives mentally and physically.
Then in August 2014, Bryant Mitchell was forced to turn his focus to his building. Rioters vandalized the gym. The same night, a grand jury decided not to charge a Ferguson police officer in Michael Brown's death.
I was at home, we were watching these guys in our building, they were gonna burn it up. And the gentleman upstairs said, you know, it's a black-owned building, please don't do it. And they spared us by the grace of God.
Thankful, he found a way to move forward.
I'm not a savior, I'm a vessel. And they were looking at me like, okay, we need you to step up. We need you, Brian. We need you to help us heal.
Out of that destruction, he developed a nonprofit, BKM for Life, teaching the less fortunate the importance of health and fitness.
I'm just glad that my gym was a part of helping people heal.
After protests, riots, and looters took a toll, stepping in to rebuild what was lost was key.
With the Urban League being 106 years old and part of a national civil rights advocacy organization that was designed to empower people of color, but also designed to bring the races together, it was a very unique moment in time for us.
In the last decade, the organization has spent $25 million in Ferguson and Delwood, fixing up the lifeless facade. By purchasing vacant buildings and abandoned lots, building a plaza, providing hundreds of jobs. Then, 44 new apartments with services for seniors to thrive.
Hopefully, this is an opportunity for us to have a reinvigorated time of resources, dialogue, advocacy, and action so that we can be the great city and the great region that St. Louis is meant to be.
During the unrest, at least 25 businesses burned down. Over the last 6 years, the city of Ferguson has seen more than $65 million in new commercial development. There's another $30 million plus planned or under construction.
The Boys and Girls Club's Teen Center of Excellence popped up in 2019.
It was very traumatic for us, and I think we kind of doubled down on our efforts to serve kids even better, particularly the teens.
Outside the theater where we sat down with the club's president, Flint Fowler, there's a maker space for STEAM activity, a recording studio, and a place for kids just to be kids.
Our experience has told us that when kids have their own place, kind of place to call their own, a place to belong, they tend to do better. In a place that is void of hope, you have to bring hope.
10 years of repairs and rebirth. 10 years of restoring a community.
everyone all over, they think of Ferguson, they think of bad stuff, right? They're gonna think of Michael Brown. But there are some really great things happening in the city of Ferguson, and BKM is one of them.
Travis Cummings, 5 on your side.
Documentary filmmakers from St. Louis and all over the nation created projects to lend perspective to the events of Ferguson. KSDK News Director Art Holliday spoke to Los Angeles filmmaker Eli Steele about his documentary, What Killed Michael Brown.
The events of Ferguson 2014 became a magnet for documentary filmmakers. Films like Ferguson Rises, Whose Streets, and Stranger Fruit. There was the Oscar-nominated short documentary St. Louis Superman, and the film What Killed Michael Brown, which gained national notoriety of its own.
But what was more remarkable than the tragedy itself was the explosion of controversy that surrounded it.
It's a long way, 1,800 miles, between Ferguson, Missouri and the Los Angeles area where filmmaker Eli Steele lives. Steele and his father Shelby Steele created a Ferguson documentary so controversial that Amazon wouldn't host it.
Eli Steele is hearing impaired and uses a cochlear implant, the reason we've included subtitles for his interview.
As a documentarian, that's our job, is to sort of go in and say, okay, what happened here? And then why did the country react the way it did?
The game was essentially...
The film's narrator and writer, Shelby Steele, a well-known conservative journalist and race relations scholar, is known for authoring books like The Content of Our Character and White Guilt. In What Killed Michael Brown, the Steeles applied a conservative perspective to deconstruct a complex story.
And give it our own point of view. And that's undeniable. I mean, that's what my father does. He writes his own views.
What happened in Ferguson was more about America, the very same America that would explode in 2020. Where every black was George Floyd and every cop was Derek Chauvin.
The Steele storytelling approach caused Amazon to briefly refuse to host the film in 2020, until the Wall Street Journal wrote articles questioning Amazon's decision.
The Wall Street Journal really did amazing. I mean, they wrote the article on us, then they did huge smaller pieces, so they kept the heat on.
If you had been wondering when the events in Ferguson were going to shift from a local story getting some national coverage to being a full-on national story, well, this might be it.
Following a predictable internet and media backlash, Amazon relented after 1 week, which had an unintended consequence for the film What Killed Michael Brown.
Sometimes they say that controversy can be good for business. Did it wind up being good for your film?
Yes. Yeah, and that's the whole irony of the whole situation. It put far more eyeballs on the film. It helped the film eventually rise to the number one spot on Amazon.
It turned into a frenzy, if you will, of different people. It wasn't just about Mike Brown Jr., it wasn't just about justice. Everybody was feeling like this is a free-for-all to get your grievances out.
What Killed Michael Brown and other Ferguson-related documentaries are available to stream. Art Holliday, 5 on your side.
If the past teaches us anything, it warns that it's doomed to repeat itself. And to that end, where have we gone but back to Boston? Into the thick smog of night, the uncertainty of who we want to be in the face of change. Who are we but sailors looking to survive the open water, or regular people willing to express disgust at the thought of tyranny? Our rage, the sum paid in the sons eternally youthful in our thoughts, or on the daughters that send fathers to stops and starts, the mothers holding on to 9 months of certainty, that for a time the babies were safe, that for a while at least there was hope, that at least they did not die for a lie.
Drawing attention to discrimination, millions awarded to people who languished in municipal court systems across the region. The toll it took on them was about more than the money.
I wish it was enough money so that my son doesn't have to look back on that with hurt. I wish it was enough money to give me back my dignity.
The events in Ferguson spurred change within municipal court systems across our region. A legal advocacy group accusing multiple cities of throwing people in jail to make money.
Our Mercedes McKay exposes the trickle-down effect changing people's lives forever.
It started with anger and frustration and hopelessness.
It's been a long road for Umi Okoli, a journey that began over 14 years ago and one that's never ending.
This is a pain I have to carry with me for the rest of my life, and they can't erase that from me.
The 55-year-old was pulled over, handcuffed, and put behind bars dozens of times. Ticketed for things like driving without updated license tags or expired insurance.
It's a way of trying to manage life when you have 2 kids and make $32,000 a year and are a single parent.
At one point, Okoli had warrants in 11 municipalities, from Florissant to Ferguson to Normandy, sometimes sitting in jail for days.
My life was being impacted greatly. My kids were missing their mother, not knowing when she was going to come home from jail.
It wasn't until Okoli was introduced to Arch City Defenders that she finally realized she wasn't in this fight alone. Okoli was 3 of 52 debtors' prison class action lawsuits the legal advocacy group filed between 2014 to 2024.
The basic argument in those cases that we've made is that treating someone differently because they don't have money is a constitutional violation.
Calling the abuse debtors' prisons. Executive Director Blake Strode claims this went on for years, Michael Brown's death bringing the situation to light.
It helped a lot of people to gain a better understanding of why there was so much upset and outrage.
Arch City Defenders worked to change that mistreatment. A new report revealing the impact made by sweeping reforms.
What we've seen are drops in municipal court revenues and tickets and warrants of not, 10, 15%, but of 70, 80, 90%.
The report shows from 2014 to 2023, municipal court revenue in Ferguson dropped by 95.2%. Tickets issued declined by 91.8%, and warrants issued decreased by 95.3%.
Through settlements of those cases, we've been able to collect millions of dollars.
But no amount of money can bring back the time lost.
I wish it was enough money so that my son doesn't have to look back on that with hurt. I wish it was enough money to give me back my dignity.
Let's make sure we have all the...
While the past decade brought positive change, Strode believes the problem is far from over, calling for a consolidation of St. Louis's municipal courts.
We haven't been bold enough as a region to adopt that kind of transformation.
It's a brave move that must be done to move our region forward.
I'm hopeful that people are in the fight to make change, but yet the change is so slow.
Mercedes McKay, 5 on your side.
The unrest led to changes in political leadership across the St. Louis region, which includes figures that have now become familiar faces. Although they're in a position to spark change, they tell us their work is far from over. Brent Solomon now with the change makers who have emerged over the last decade.
They tear gassed us again.
It's the power of a cell phone and a powerful story.
And I said, this story is not being told. These parts aren't being shown. Nothing was broken, nothing was vandalized.
Then a recent college journalism grad.
My reality shifted on August 9th, 2014.
A 24-year-old Ohan Ashe of Jennings found herself front and center, showcasing those protesting Mike Brown's death. She recalls being on scene when looters struck.
We were cleaning up, and at the time, this was after the Quick Trip burned, and people were on a parking lot again, crying, talking, just in community. All of a sudden, all of these police cars pull up and push people into the street, police dogs.
She'd never been arrested until this.
So I was just released about an hour ago.
She kept recording as protesters rallied for change. One of them, a police officer himself, called in to help keep the peace. Captain Ron Johnson with Missouri Highway Patrol marching with the protesters. 10 years later, he now consults police departments.
But I wanted them to know that I respected them.
Other familiar faces were there too. Alicia Saunier, now with the St. Louis Board of Aldermen. Wesley Bell, calming tensions on both sides. He would later be elected to the Ferguson City Council, and then as the St. Louis County Prosecutor. Cori Bush, who went on to become a U.S. Congresswoman. Bruce Franks Jr., who would soon become a state representative, and the then 20-year-old who would soon replace him at the Missouri Capitol.
It was more, if we go to jail, we go to jail.
After serving as a state rep, Rasheed Aldrich Jr. now serves on the St. Louis Board of Aldermen.
It's important to agitate and disrupt, but we also got to make sure we got the right kinfolks at the table that's actually going to work on policy that change a system in a, like I say, an unapologetic way, not small change. Our communities need dramatic change.
Aldridge and Ashe applaud the black business owners who have surfaced since the protests. Ashe even launched For the Culture STL, an online directory of local black businesses, and the annual Culture Kickback, celebrating black culture. It happens every year on the Sunday after Mike Brown's death.
Have we gotten it right? Have we gotten it better 10 years later?
I think we're a lot farther than where we would have been if Ferguson didn't happen.
But when we talk about the change that can impact a black person's day-to-day experience in St. Louis, we unfortunately still have so much further to go.
We have this large disproportion when it comes to jobs, housing, school, healthcare, change in policy, and you're talking about things that have been on the books for generations. One, it doesn't change overnight. Two, once it actually gets passed, it takes time for people to feel it in their everyday lives. But I will say we progressing, we're moving forward.
And when you've seen that progress is possible, it can be the driving force to never let it end. Brent Solomon, 5 on your side.
So many people have spent the last decade telling Ferguson's story, but none have done it quite like Chris Phillips. Phillips was starting out his career in film and living at the Canfield Green Apartments in 2014. What happened in his neighborhood launched him into the national spotlight. Michelle Lee, alongside photojournalist Eric Voss, produced our next story about storytelling with a purpose.
This is really what I prayed to do. For me, the end game is peace. My name is Christopher Phillips. I am a filmmaker, I'm a creative, and just a public servant. That's pretty much what people know me for. 10 years ago, I was living in Canfield Green Apartments, right in the heart of Ferguson's 3rd Ward, just in my little 1-bedroom apartment, doing multiple things, working multiple jobs. For several years, I had paid a premium on my rent and was going month to month because I had been trying to move like that. And then when that shooting happened, I was just like, I can't leave now. And then as the facts started to unfold for me, I understood how important it was, having lived in Ferguson, being a victim of the same systemic issues and racism and things like that that led to this moment. I knew it was important to document that. What I was documenting was really looking at the community response in the wake of Michael Brown's shooting and the systemic and institutionalized issues that were the catalysts, that were the context that led to that shooting. And so from then going forward over these last 9+ years is looking at how the community responded to it and what we did about it as a region and how it influenced the national conversation and of issues related to it. I did a short documentary piece, Ferguson 365, which I was blessed to have been accepted to 12 festivals, domestically and internationally. I had a moment where I was filming when the protesters walked past the McCloskey's lawn, and there's this shot of me pointing my camera at her, and she's pointing her gun at me, and that going viral. I was arrested 6 months to the day Mike Brown was killed in front of the Ferguson Police Department, just filming on the sidewalk. It's been, a blessing, but it's also, there's ups and downs to it. I've been fortunate enough to be profiled by the Washington Post and Al Jazeera and these different outlets and lend my voice to the conversation. Just important because Ferguson is really a microcosm of a national epidemic and problem. And so that's what compelled me. 2020 was a crazy year. I was all over the place. George Floyd and Breonna Taylor protests, all that stuff. Not everything has a happy ending sometimes, you know, but we hope to get to that place. I pray that God uses me in the way that He sees fit so that it helps other people. And so I feel like I'm doing that through my creative work with the companies that I'm working with, and I'm also doing that with my film work because that's really, really, really important.
Black and brown lifeless bodies on the ground for a relic reason. And I'm waiting on easier and brighter, easier and brighter, easier and brighter. Better shine a light while we have time because our children are watching and they have bags under their eyes. Better shine a light because they're doing it all in broad daylight and ain't even trying to hide. Better shine a light because I hear this ticking sound. I hear this ticking sound. I hear this ticking sound. We better pull this wire now.
Don't forget what caused it, but if we don't make that shift, then everything that happened would have been all for naught.
A decade of change. Stakeholders weigh in on what's needed next in Ferguson.
He was immediately thrust in the national spotlight after the death of his namesake and son, Michael Brown Jr. Like any parent who has lost a child, he is grieving the loss and coming to terms in his own way. In his own words, Michael Brown Sr. reflects on the past 10 years and shares his plan for moving forward.
My name is Michael Brown Sr., and I am the father of Michael Brown Jr. The day he was born, brown skin, big boy, eyes closed. I vowed to protect and nourish him and keep him safe. He was very energetic, you know, typical teenage boy. He graduated August 1st out of summer school. He was talking about the world gonna know my name. I'm like, what you talking about? You know, and he like, I'm gonna be a rapper. I'm like, man, you're not gonna be no rapper. You're going to battle rap, you're gonna take this trade. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I was like, well, this is what I need you to do, and you leave the rapping for a hobby. I talked to him August 4th because there was something going on with his phone. He said, I talked to you later, I love you, you know, and said it back, and that was it. I get the phone, and she said, the police just killed Michael, and he's laying in the middle of the street. Only thing I remember is getting there, getting out the car. Leslie, which is his mother, runs past me, but stops and say, Mike, is this true? And I said, I only know what you know. And she took off running, and I ran behind her. I really couldn't wrap my mind around everything that was happening because it was like I was moving slow and everything was moving fast. But 2 days after the shooting, we were doing a lot of traveling. It was like the world wanted us. They wanted our story, right? So it's a lot of things with the protest that we didn't see, but we heard about it later on. To see people standing up for someone that they didn't even know, we thank them. I've been mad for a long time because of that, you know, so I had to get myself in a place where I have therapy, I have, you know, things that would help me. People don't understand that that is a nightmare. It's a life sentence that I would deal with for the rest of my life, you know, just knowing how that day played out and missing them. The Michael Brown Senior Children for Change organization, where we provide help to fathers and families that's processing the unthinkable. So I work out my foundation, you know, helping other families. I would like to see it, you know, build up on the side where, because there's two sides, right? I would like to see that side that's they get less attention, more thriving. You know, I would like to see more people being able to get jobs, opportunities for their family. I want people to remember him as he was a human. He was someone that people loved. You know, someone's brother, nephew. You know. So his legacy would be, yeah, it would be through me.
And that legacy also continues through Michael Brown Jr.'s younger siblings, many of whom keep his memory alive through social activism.
You can hear more of the interviews with Ferguson Mayor Ella Jones and Michael Brown Sr. on our 5+ app or on YouTube by using the QR code on your screen. The unrest that followed Michael Brown's death created a wave of change in Ferguson. Now, to continue moving in the right direction, our Justina Cornell found that all eyes are on the days ahead.
Hi, this is Josh with Best Insurance. I'm actually returning your call.
His faith in Ferguson has him focused.
Yes.
Focused on the future. Josh Ray Davis with Best Insurance Agency has sat in the same spot for more than 30 years. The window next to him is a bird's eye view of West Florissant. He calls it ground zero of the Michael Brown unrest.
This is the building right next door to me.
When he walks into work, he's presented with a pass.
I was on the cover story on Ferguson.
The display is a reminder to reach for brighter days.
I mean, you look out the window. I mean, for a while, I looked at a vacant lot. I want the 24,000 plus cars that drive down West Florissant to know there has been a change. And things have changed for us.
Recently, West Florissant received an $18 million federal grant to beautify the area.
I can actually get you a better rate.
Davis welcomes the funds.
I checked with 3 different companies.
He also wants more commitment, like the ones his neighbors have made, including the Ferguson Community Empowerment Center, built on the site of the burned-down Quick Trip. It's where the program Save Our Sons came to life.
And it was birthed out of the Michael Brown unrest.
From conception,
you have to be honest with yourself.
Program director Tydrell Stevens explained,
in order to improve my life,
it's had 4,000 career placements, assisting 9,000 individuals, including Johnny Cotton.
As I was walking down the streets, I seen Save Our Sons, I seen some flags, and I walked in.
An open door, an opportunity. After 17 years in prison, President Obama gave him clemency, and Save Our Sons gave him a new life. Khan bounced back with a job and a home. His goal, to pay it forward.
I came back to help Save Our Son. What I do, every time I talk to a young guy, I bring him in.
What do you think still needs changing to continue moving Ferguson forward?
More jobs.
Stevens believes the future means doubling down. To expand, Save Our Sons moved into its new 60,000 square foot Centene Connected Community Center.
So we're creating a pre-apprenticeship program that will be launched out of the Centene building. We also have our paid internship program. So we're looking, those 150 employer partners that we have, we're looking to place paid interns that we will pay to be on our jobs to get work experience.
How will Save Our Sons really help with that path forward, and what will that impact be?
We're looking to ensure that we're getting more than 250 to 300 individual new high-skill credentials.
Looking at the future, what do you think still needs to change?
Looking at the future, I believe more collaboration and consistency needs to continue to happen.
I wanted a reason for the community to get together.
Davis wants more investment.
Give me a grocery store. Give me a restaurant. I don't think that's a big ask.
Next to a view of constant changes, Davis now has a window into the future.
I know what was, and I know what can be. That's what keeps me, is the promise of a good, bright future.
Justina Cornell, 5 on Your Side.
Thank you for watching Race, Listen, Learn, Live, Voices of Ferguson. The goal of our program was to provide examples of the transformation that's taken place in the community over the past decade. What's been done to move us forward.
And while there's been positive reform, we've also learned that there is still work to be done. It is an ongoing effort that's going to take time, investment, and commitment from all of us. Good night.